The Battle of Białystok Minsk was a German strategic operation conducted by the Army Group Center during the penetration of the Soviet border region. In the opening stage of Operation Barbarossa, lasting from the 22nd of June to the 3rd of July 1941, its goal, the encirclement and destruction of the Red Army's Western Front forces around Minsk, was accomplished. All major Soviet counter-attacks and breakthrough attempts failed and the defenders were defeated, allowing for the Wehrmacht to take many Soviet prisoners and to further advance into the Soviet Union at a pace so swift that some believed the Germans had effectively won the war against the Soviet Union already. Prelude. Commanded by Field Marshal Fedor von Bock, Army Group Center was tasked with attacking from Poland through the Białystok, Minsk, Smolensk axis towards Moscow. The Army Group included the 9th and 4th Armies. Its armored forces were Hoth's 3rd Panzer Group and Guderian's 2nd Panzer Group. The two infantry armies fielded 33 divisions and the Panzer armies fielded 9 armored divisions, 6 motorized divisions and a cavalry division. Army Group Center could call upon Luftflotte 2 for air support. Facing Army Group Center was the Red Army's Western Front commanded by General of the Army Dmitry Pavlov. It included the 3rd, 4th, and 10th Armies along the frontier. The 13th Army was held as part of the Statute High Command Reserve and initially existed as a headquarters unit only, with no assigned forces. Altogether, the Soviet Western Front had 25 rifle and cavalry divisions, 13 tank and 7 motorized divisions. The Red Army disposition in Belarus was based on the idea of avoiding a war of attrition by engaging in an aggressive counterattack to any invasion, carrying the war into German-occupied Poland. The plan suffered from weakness along the flanks, created by circumstances such as the line of demarcation placement following the division of Poland in 1939, the forward placement of both German and Soviet forces in a double bulge position enabled both sides to try the double envelopment. However, it was the OKH that undertook it successfully thanks to preempting hostilities, destroying much of the Red Air Force in the airfield while simultaneously severing most of the Soviet Western Front's land forces from lines of communication with other Soviet fronts. The Soviet forces fell to a twin armored encirclement, centered on Białystok and Novorudek, to the west of Minsk. Formations. Soviet Western Front, Commander Army General Pavlov, Operations Officer General I.V. Bolden 3rd Army, V.I. Kuznetsov 4th Army, 10th Army, K.D. Golubev 2nd Echelon 13th Army, Lieutenant. German Army Group Center, Commander General Feldmarschall Fedor von Bock 3rd Panzer Group, General Oberst Hermann Hoth 39th Army Corps, General Oberst Rudolf Schmidt 57th Army Corps, General der Panzertruppen Adolf Kuntz in 6th Army Corps, General der Pionier Otto Wilhelm Forster 9th Army, General Oberst Adolf Strauss 5th Army Corps, General Oberst Richard Ruoff 8th Army Corps, General Oberst Walter Heitz 20th Army Corps, General der Infantry Friedrich Materna 4th Army, General Feldmarschall Gunther von Kluge 7th Army Corps, General der Artillerie Wilhelm Farnbacher IX Army Corps, General der Infantry Hermann Geier 12th Army Corps, General der Infantry Walther Schroth 13th Army Corps, General der Infantry Hans Felber 43rd Corps, General Oberst Gotthard Heinrich I 2nd Panzer Group, General Oberst Heinz Guderian 24th Panzer Corps, General der Panzertruppen Leo Freyr Geyr von Schweppenberg 46th Panzer Corps, General Heinrich von Viertinghoff-Scheel 47th Panzer Corps, General der Panzertruppen Joachim Lemelson 10th Infantry Division, General Lieutenant Friedrich Wilhelm von Loper 1st Cavalry Division, Generalleutnant Kurt Felt Reserve, 2nd Army, General Oberst Maximilian von Weich's 35th Corps, General der Infanterie Rudolf Kempfer 42nd Corps, General der Pionier Walter Kunter, 53rd Army Corps, General der Infanterie Karl Weisenberger 286th Security Division, Generalleutnant Kurt Müller. Tanks. On the 22nd of June 1941, the balance of tanks over the entire area of the Soviet Western Front was as follows. The operation. The Red Army moved into Białystok, which shaped Soviet planning. Beyond Białystok, Minsk was a key strategic railway junction in a defensive position of the main road and rail communications with Moscow. Also caught in the German operation was part of the 11th Army of the Northwestern Front. In the north, 3rd Panzer Group attacked, cutting the 11th Army from Western Front, and crossed the Neman River. The 2nd Panzer Group crossed the Bug River, and by the 23rd of June had penetrated 60 kilometers into Soviet territory. The Panzer Group's objectives were to meet east of Minsk and prevent any Red Army withdrawal from the encirclement. Operating with the Panzer Groups to encircle the Soviet forces, the 9th Army and 4th Army cut into the salient, beginning to encircle Soviet armies around Białystok. On the 23rd of June, the Soviet 10th Army attempted a counter-attack in accordance with pre-war planning, but failed to achieve its goals. On the 24th of June, General Pavlov ordered his operations officer, General Bolden, to take charge of the 6th, 11th Mechanized Corps and 6th Cavalry Corps for a counter-attack towards Rodna to prevent the encirclement of Red Army formations near Białystok. This attack failed with heavy losses, although it may have allowed some units to escape the western encirclement towards Minsk. In the evening of the 25th of June, the German 47th Panzer Corps cut between Slonim and Volkovisk, forcing Pavlov to order the withdrawal of all troops in the salient behind the Shara River at Slonim to avoid encirclement. Most formations could not break contact with the Germans, and due to the loss of fuel and transport assets, those who could break out had to withdraw on foot. This withdrawal opened the southern approaches of Minsk. 5 days after the invasion on the 27th of June, the pincer of Guderian's 2nd Panzer Group and Hoth's 3rd Panzer Group closed east of Minsk. The Panzer Groups had advanced 321 kilometers into the Soviet Union and almost a third of the distance to Moscow. On the 28th of June, the 9th and 4th German armies linked up east of Białystok, splitting the encircled Soviet forces into two pockets. A smaller Białystok pocket containing the Soviet 10th Army and a larger Novorudek pocket containing the 3rd and 13th Armies. Ultimately, in 17 days the Soviet Western Front lost 420,000 personnel from a total of 625,000. On the 26th of June, Minsk, the capital of Belarus, fell to the Wehrmacht. A 2nd Red Army counter-attack by the 20th Mechanized Corps and 4th Airborne Corps failed to breach the encirclement as well, and by the 30th of June the pocket was completely closed. The German forces surrounded and eventually destroyed or took prisoner most of the Soviet 3rd and 10th, 13th Armies and part of the 4th Army, in total about 20 divisions, while the remainder of the 4th Army fell back eastwards towards the western Berezina River. The Luftwaffe's Luftflotte 2 helped destroy the VVS Western Front. Some 1,669 Soviet aircraft had been destroyed. The Luftwaffe lost 276 as destroyed and an additional 208 damaged. After only a week of fighting, the total serviceable strength of Luftflotte 1, Luftflotte 2 and Luftflotte 4 had been reduced to just 960 machines. Consequences: the Soviet troops trapped in the gigantic pocket continued fighting, and concluding operations resulted in high German casualties. Many Soviet troops, an estimated 250,000, escaped due to the lack of German infantry troops motor transport that slowed the encirclement process. Most of these troops were later sent to penal battalions. The Polish Institute of National Remembrance claims that withdrawing Soviet troops committed regular crimes against the inhabitants of Białystok and its areas, including cases of whole families being executed by firing squads. On conclusion, 290,000 Soviet soldiers were captured, and 1,500 guns along with 2,500 tanks were destroyed, but 250,000 Soviet troops managed to escape. The quick advance east created the possibility for the Wehrmacht to advance rapidly towards the land bridge of Smolensk, from which an attack on Moscow could be planned. It also created the impression in the OKW that the war against the Soviet Union was already won, within days of its start. Despite this feat, Hitler blamed the panzer generals for leaving gaps in the lines, and the panzer generals for their part were deeply frustrated as for almost a week their advance east had been stopped while they closed the pocket and waited for the infantry to catch up. They feared the momentum of the armored offensive would be lost. The front commander General Pavlov and his front staff were recalled to Moscow, accused of intentional disorganization of defense and retreat without battle. They were soon executed by the NKVD because of cowardice and failure to perform their duties. Their families were repressed. They were pardoned in 1956. An exception to this was Pavlov's operations officer, General Ivan Bolden, who had been cut off by the German advance at a forward headquarters in the first days of the invasion and subsequently fought his way back to Soviet lines with over 1,000 other soldiers a month and a half later. Bibliography. Bergstrom, Krista. Barbarossa, The Air Battle. July-December 1941. London. Chervin, Ian Allen. ISBN 978-1-85780-270-2. Ziemke, E.F. Moscow to Stalingrad. David M. Glantz, Jonathan M. House. When Titans Clashed. How the Red Army Stopped Hitler. University Press of Kansas. David M. Glantz. Barbarossa. Hitler's Invasion of Russia 1941. Stroud. Tempest. ISBN 0-7524-1979-X. The Initial Period of War on the Eastern Front, 22 June-August 1941. Proceedings of the Fourth Art of War Symposium, Garmisch, FRG, October 1987, edited by David M. Glantz. ISBN 0-7146-3375-5. Brian I. Fugit and Lev Voretsky, Thunder on the Dnepr, Zhukov Stalin and the Defeat of Hitler's Blitzkrieg, Gaia, Das IX, Army Corps im Ostfeldzug.